All right. Welcome to the Saga, the Clone Saga, the weekly Spider-Man podcast presented by the Students of S.H.I.E.L.D. as we slowly go crazy reading every single comic of the infamous 1990s Clone Saga. I'm Mike, and alongside me today we have.
I'm Billy, and little Ben with his new and improved costume.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Vincent. And besides Little Ben's new costume, our sponsor today is this Swamp Thing pin from Blackened Design. So go check them out. All right. So we're officially in the Ben Reilly era. So several episodes from here on out will kind of be compilations of one-off stories as the crossovers actually take a break, or at least they're not as clear as just regular subplots develop. So today we're talking about the launch of the new title, Sensational Spider-Man, and an issue each of Amazing Spider-Man and Adjectiveless Spider-Man. So we start with a weird one. We have Sensational Spider-Man Mini Comic 3 or something.
Okay.
So this is a promotional comic for readers of Wizard Magazine. Who here ever read Wizard Magazine?
I still have old issues of Wizard Magazine like around my house somewhere.
Wizard Magazine, of course, probably the big mainstream comics-based magazine. It was always cringy. The occasionally cool things is they'd have like, here are the top 10 artists and top 10 writers, but they also had like, these are the books that are going up with the speculator boom, and just really like a lot of cringy like sexist comments and like judging girls who send in cosplay photos. It's super weird.
There was also you forgot the other famous thing. They used to do the dream casting for comic book films.
Those are always pretty tough.
Some of them they got pretty close though.
All right, so the cover here, it's worth noting, is just the regular old Spidey costume because that will change in a second. I don't really know what's going on with that. Because Ben never put that on. So I guess it's showing Peter for some reason, or they just don't care. So the way these worked is they were mail-in orders. For Wizard readers, it would be like a little card in the Wizard magazine, and then you fill it out and you send it in with like $5 or whatever. I think some of them were actually may have been even charity, which is kind of cool. And they were usually half issues or 0 issues. A half issue is when you just randomly wanted to promote your comics, so you just slid it in their reading order somewhere. And a 0 issue is when you're launching a book, I guess. And so other series that had Wizard issues include Astro City. Astro City 1/2 is the Nearness of You storyline, which is one of my favorite comic issues of all time. Jeff Johns' Flash War had a half issue, which I believe is kind of just like an interlude scene thing.
Wait, Flash War? That's going on now in the pages of Flash.
Isn't it? It's called Flash War, though, right?
Yeah, it's called Flash War.
Okay, yeah. Gen 13 had a half issue, and the Undertaker comic book had a Wizard promotion issue, and the Phantom Menace adaptation, and lots of other 90s trash.
I have to ask, is it the Undertaker comic book that explains that Mark Calloway is just a biker dude, and then by touching the urn, he got the powers of the Undertaker?
I didn't bother with that much research, but I'm pretty sure on the cover there's like lightning surrounding him, and I'm not sure if that was just artistic or if that was like the in-continuity powers of the Undertaker.
I really hope that this particular sensational Spider-Man issue was for charity, because if not, then wow, people wasted $5.
Yeah, this is filler. So this issue is literally just Ben sulking in the rain on a gargoyle, which cool scene. We always like in the Spider-Man books, but you also only see that for like 1-2 pages. The rest of the book, we just go over his entire history again. And that's literally all there is to point out. Like, there's no new hints, nothing new, no teases. Yeah, so Sensational Spider-Man, this is a new title. It's replacing the lowest selling Web of Spider-Man. Though for a huge chunk, Webb had a consistent look thanks to Alex Sabiak. It was rarely a stable title, with the exception there was like a 2-year run somewhere in there by Jerry Conway that ran alongside his spectacular work, which we covered a bit on the podcast. But he dropped this second title when he got some other gig in like animation or something, and he never went back to it. And by the time there was another like run that was worth noting, we're pretty much right before the Clone Saga. So it was some low tier editor writing it, which in this case was Terry Kavanaugh, who was the instigator of the entire Clone Saga. And it's really saying something because the Adjectiveless book was pretty identityless after McFarlane left, and that was like over 40 issues ago. But Sensational, mostly because of the creator, which we'll talk about in a second, I would say it's kind of like the new like prestige flagship. I don't know how to explain it. Like I'd compare it to Astonishing X-Men by Joss Whedon.
Yeah, that's a good comparison, I'd say.
And so the draw here, Mike, who's the creator on Sensational?
Dan Jurgens and Klaus Janson.
And who is Dan Jurgens?
Dan Jurgens is mostly known for, I always forget, he did Superman, right? It was the main Superman book.
Yeah.
He drew and wrote Superman throughout the 90s and was he's famously the person that said, let's just kill him when they had to scrap their stories in 93 to move the Superman's wedding to coincide with the Lois and Clark TV show. So he's also the creator of Doomsday. So he wrote all of that and stuff before it as well.
But what's his most important creation?
Booster Gold is his most important creation.
Yep.
Don Kent.
And then Klaus Janson is a frequent collaborator with Frank Miller. He worked with Miller on Daredevil, and before Lynn Varley inked a lot of his stuff. And Klaus mostly works with John Romita Jr. now.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of crazy because at this point, Jurgens is still writing Superman. So the same guy is writing the flagship in this case, title of both Superman and Spider-Man at the same time.
That's insane.
And in a few years, he'll come back to Marvel, and his only other notable Marvel work are runs on Thor and Captain America.
His run on Thor is pretty good, though, right?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Towards the end, there's like this weird, like slightly alternate universe thing. It starts off really, really strong with John Romita Jr. art, though.
Yeah, I want to grab that first omnibus that he does because it looks really cool.
So we got the half issue gimmick, and now we move into issue number 0. And on the cover here, we have a new costume, which our little Ben is wearing. And the new costume is designed by Mark Bagley. So let's judge it now. What is everyone's opinion on this new costume?
It's a product of its time, but I really dig it.
It's fine. The middle 2 fingers are blue, which is really weird.
He's got that Gambit thing going on.
It's just, it's unnecessarily busy, but it's fine.
Yeah, I think the worst part is the dumb gloves design.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was about to say. I like the suit other than those 2 fingers randomly being blue.
How do you feel about the double colored boots?
Yeah, that's my other iffy part is the like odd red section on his calves and boots. I would have just had him completely blue under the waist.
Or maybe just make the boots or like the shoes parts red. I like the giant spider though.
Yeah.
I almost like, I was talking with Matt about this the other day. Like, I just kind of wish, like for Spencer and Otley's book, if they have to use the black suit, why don't they just go back to using like the original red and black color scheme? Mm-hmm. The red and black color scheme could have totally worked here, especially since this would have been the Peter Parker that would have actually been in that original red and black suit anyway.
Yep. Yeah, for those who don't know what we're talking about, Spider-Man's suit is totally supposed to be red and black. They just used blue because that's the way black coloring worked back then. Like Superman has blue hair. And then they just kept rolling with it. And everyone else like slightly misinterpreted it or thought it was an improvement.
Which you don't even, I always liked the blue highlight color for black. You actually don't really get any of that anymore.
Well, yeah, because it's totally
coloring has gotten so much better.
So this issue also, on the topic of gimmicks, it had a lenticular variant cover, which is stupid, but I'm sure it worked better than the hollow discs from earlier.
Lenticular covers, the thing that won't die, as Marvel and DC are still doing them today.
Yep. So Ben, he's visiting Aunt May and Uncle Ben's graves, and he stops a thief who's trying to rob a flower salesman, which I don't think is a very lucrative stick-up. And I love this dialogue from this flower salesman. He's like, "I'll call up my brother Vito and he'll break your knees." I really hope that flower salesman shows up again, or at least his brother Vito.
I hope so. He made a favorite character.
And then Ben runs into Aunt Anna, and he has to play it off as Peter, that he's Peter, which makes him realize that he should probably change what he looks like.
Because this is, considering that this is like the third time someone has recognized him as Peter in as many issues or something like that.
And then we get another entire page of recap of the entire Clone Saga.
Yep.
And we get an editor's note to check out the Final Adventure miniseries for details on what Peter and MJ are up to.
Yeah,
and
when did we read that?
In our reading order, it's in a few episodes. I think it's going to be like 34 or 35.
Oh, I can't wait.
But the better question is not when we read it, but who cares?
Me. I personally care.
Because so far, I mean, I'll say this. I'll go out on a limb and say this ahead right now. This is the best solo Ben story we've had yet, because the first two were terrible.
Yeah.
Everything we've read has been terrible. What are you talking about?
Yes, but you have to judge it on how unterrible it is. Aside from Spider-Man's origin being capped twice in 14 pages, this isn't a bad number one, because it's made to like attract new readers. Like, once you get past that, I think it's a solid first issue, and I think the art is fine.
So the plot that's kind of brewing in the background and comes to the foreground, but it's building, and we'll finish it in the next episode or two, is Mysterio. He wants some dumb chip, and I was very scared it was going to be virtual reality related, and it's not too far off because it's Mysterio, but whatever.
Why does it look like this?
Yeah. Did I miss something? Or this is the debut of his new Mysterio design?
Yeah, it's just a new design, and again, this design isn't from Jurgens either. This design is apparently from Romita. So I think, and we've commented on the weird villain usage as the Clone Saga goes on. I think at this point they were thinking that they wanted to redesign every fucking villain, which is not necessary.
I think out of all the villains we've seen so far, Mysterio has the most belts. Like, I think he takes
no. Judas.
There's got to be more on that jackal jacket. There's no way.
Judas only had like 4 belts, but Mysterio is wearing like 7 at least.
So
for it.
Mysterio is contracting this thief with drones that he has emotional attachments to, which is weird.
Armada.
Yeah. He was a lot cooler in this issue, where he's just like, or at least in the beginning, where he's just this guy with drones.
Yeah.
So Ben is poor as fuck because he's a shitty bodyguard. He got fired from that. And also his apartment that he shared with Seaward Trainer got trashed. And Trainer is still catatonic. And he talks about making a web fluid mattress, which I don't know how that would work, because the web fluid usually dissipates after like not that long. So he'd have to take power naps. Yeah, an hour or two, maybe 4 max, but still, like, you're not getting a full night's sleep.
No, also, but like, if I had taken a nap on a webbing mattress, I would have woke up on time for the podcast. So,
well, here's the other thing. Why would you make a webbing mattress when, oh no, he's out of fucking webbing?
Yeah, exactly.
And there also, because it's Dan Jurgens, there is a Superman reference.
Yes.
Ben questions why the guy in the blue suit and the red cape doesn't have these problems.
It's because Superman's fiscally responsible and married to another woman who also probably makes more money than him and is also fiscally responsible.
Yeah. Though on a good day, MJ probably makes more money than Lois and Clark.
Oh, easily.
But it's mostly Peter dragging his situation down. Of course, this is Ben, but still.
Well, the thing is, Ben like scrounges up enough money to buy material to make homemade web fluid, and he's talking about how this flashes back to when he had to make it at Aunt May and Uncle Ben's house. And then in order to test it, he just like sprays it everywhere, and he's making like web shields. I'm like, dude, you don't have a lot of that, and you're just immediately wasting your supply.
He also talks shit on Reed Richards, which I did not appreciate.
That's fine. I do also. I think it's interesting, and we'll get into a little more later as he starts to get into some combat. But I like that his web fluid, like, because it's makeshift, it kind of sucks.
Yeah. Lets him fuck up.
Yeah.
So then he heads out to eat at the Daily Grind Cafe. And he's broke as shit because he just made all that web fluid. So he's short 25 cents, and the owner pays for part of his meal. And then some fashion model comes in and steals his seat.
Yeah, who is this bitch?
Well, we get
this.
We get her name later. But Matt, what is the Daily Grind calling back to?
But I don't know.
The coffee bean.
Oh, is it calling back
How
to
do
the coffee
I
bean?
get that reference and you don't?
I mean, loosely. Like it's
just a coffee shop that people that he goes to. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's Spider-Man. You got to hang out in the coffee shop when you're building back up from basics. So this fashion model, because she's into fashion, motivates Ben Reilly to go break into the fashion department of a local university.
Well, that's the thing, is she, because this is, the Daily Grind is like whatever like university coffee shop, like right off a campus that people go to. It's implied that this girl is a student there, right?
I don't know if it is, but
that's the way I took it. Like, she's just like super popular as she's also a student. I was like, what?
I'm not sure. It's not clear yet. But then we get a splash page of Ben considering costume designs, and every single one is ugly as fuck.
They're all terrible.
The one based off Speedball's costume is easily the ugliest.
Nah, I don't know.
I think
it's
the
one he comments too ugly on.
Lots of them have really weird logo placement, like on his forehead.
What do you think of? What did you think of the X-Men one?
It was pretty terrible. Now, here's the thing: the one in the bottom right, which is probably the least terrible, apparently that is what Dan Jurgens proposed for the new costume.
Huh.
And the coloring on that is closer to what this Ben Reilly one will kind of be converted to, combined with an Alex Ross movie design when we get to Superior.
The one on the bottom right with a giant stink bug on his chest?
Yes.
I don't remember that part, but yeah, it's like mostly black.
And the one on the bottom right, the Jurgen, it almost reminds me of the upcoming PS4 one because it's the giant white spider.
So Ben decides on a design and he slips it on. And we learn here that Ben Reilly wears briefs. And I think Peter has recently at this point. I should have took note, but I believe when we've seen him in the bedroom with MJ, he's had on briefs. And Matt, do you remember what you told me as a comparison?
Yeah. In today's world, Peter Parker wears boxers.
Which, do we want to run down what kind of underwear all of us wear real quick? I'm a boxer briefs kind of guy.
Yeah, boxer briefs.
I mean, my drawer is because I just don't throw shit away and just buy whatever I need when I want it. I have briefs and boxer briefs, so.
Dude, boxer briefs all the way. They're just the superior underwear.
No, they really are.
They really are.
Mike, do you have
comfort and support?
Mike, do you have Mack Weldon though?
No, we got to get some Mack Weldon.
All right.
They're antimicrobial.
And while he's designing this costume, Ben also cuts and dyes his hair. And then I like this page where it's like teasing out the full reveal of him all suited up. like it's not like amazing, but it actually is kind of suspenseful, like building this reveal. And then we get this really gratuitous 2-page splash of him in the costume saying "Yeehaw."
Yeah, it's a
It was
bit
like
much.
Tobey Maguire. You could hear Tobey Maguire read that line.
And now let's cut back to this Mysterio plot. It turns out this chip he's looking for, it's like a neural interface special effects system or some shit for TV production.
I just want to say when we also cut back to Armada, like fully like suited up, this guy looks like a '90s Superman or DC villain.
Yeah, I swear to God, he looks like at least one or two characters that I know of, but I just couldn't pinpoint.
He looks like a mashup of Batman, Guardian, and Aztec.
Yeah, Guardian's pretty close. I was thinking Hard Case from the Malibu Ultraverse, but he looks really weird.
Well, he shows up and he's literally shining. There's like light shining off of his bulky gold suit of armor. And earlier Mysterio said he's like the best corporate thief.
Yeah.
How is he stealing anything walking around like a disco ball?
Well, the best part, he says best corporate thief, so like I'm picturing him just walking into like an office
With a
with
tie and a
a
briefcase.
tie on with that.
Okay, so I had a thought and I looked it up, and he looks like the villain known as Brass Knuckles from the Fairly Odd Parents. He was Crimson Chin's villain.
That's the bronze kneecap, right?
Well, no, Brass Knuckles is a separate character,
Okay.
but he does also look like the Brass Kneecap in a way.
Okay.
Bronze kneecap.
I don't care.
So
Man.
Spidey shows up and he fights Armada, and Armada uses these little drones as we discussed. And then, how did you guys feel about this crazy web parachute cushion maneuver?
What?
On the scale of OP web usage, it's like so close to going overboard, but I didn't think it was terrible.
Yeah, it's like I was like, okay, it's better than like the paraglider and other shit he was doing an arc ago.
Yeah, it's fine, I guess.
And so Spidey wins, but Mysterio gets the chip anyway. So whatever.
Right, the chip is this giant orb, right? That's not really a chip. I have to assume also
Giant orb.
this giant orb Mysterio's gonna put on his head, right? That's what this is.
I don't know, because I'm pretty sure the explanation for why it's an orb is that the scientists developed it in zero gravity, so the orb replicates zero gravity or something. So the chip has to be in. It doesn't make sense, but I swear that's what they said.
They did say that.
That's not okay.
And Ben, he refuses $100 from this dumb scientist guy who developed the chip.
But he takes it.
$100, but he takes a quarter. Which
I kind of like that, but it also at the same time, I'm like, if there's ever a time for a dude to take $100,
yeah, I thought he was gonna take it. So he takes that quarter to the coffee shop and he settles his debt. And so because of that, he gets offered a job. And then, like, all right, I think he should have took the $100, sort of. But then this moment is stupid. He gets this new job and he asks for a cash advance so that he can go buy flowers to talk to his dead uncle and aunt again.
which he was already doing at the beginning of the episode, but beginning of the issue, by the way.
Yeah, it circles it back around. But also, I'm like, did you need to buy those flowers? Because asking for a cash advance on like this like low tier job that you literally just got after this woman already paid something and you settled, that was weird to me.
Also, the guy who he saved said, if you ever need flowers, go to Vito. And I guess, did he just not go to Vito? Because it looked like Vito was probably going to give him free flowers anyway.
No. The guy who said go to Vito is the flower salesman. Vito is his cousin who will break your knee.
But he did say that if you ever need flowers, go to this place.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to see Vito. So what are everyone's overall thoughts on the writing and art here from Dan Jurgens?
Art's really good. Jansen's inks make it look a little bit like Frank Miller to me. There's some easily like Frank around the time of Daredevil, like Wolverine era, which is a little weird, but like there's definite moments like that's Jurgen's art around. I think it's the best art we've seen, at least in this episode. Writing for me, aside from like the needless recaps, I think it's a solid issue.
I think the writing's fine. I don't like pretty much any of the quips that Jurgens writes. I don't
I'd
think
agree. The
I don't
quotes are
think
not
it
good.
sounds I don't think it sounds good. But I mean, other than that, it's like it's acceptable, and it's probably better than most of the shit we've been reading.
It's not overly wordy like some of the other stuff.
No, it's not DeMatteis, is it?
No, it. Reading this was like a breeze. I was like, all right, give me more of this, please.
Yeah, I think he's kind of the best writer at this point. I mean, DeMatteis is actually technically gone, but he gives me a headache, and then Tom DeFalco gives me a slightly different kind of headache.
Yeah.
And Tom Lyle just makes me want to die, but he's also gone, thankfully.
Thank God.
Everyone else at this point is just like a super generic writer.
Like, yeah, what's the other writers we have? Like Howard Mackey? Like,
Yeah, Mackey.
Unless he's writing Ghost Rider, I don't really give a shit.
And Todd DeZago, Terry Kavanaugh, like people that don't matter.
Mike Lackey.
Yep.
Mike Lackey, who's an intern. It's just a rotating name given to an intern.
It is. It has to be.
All right. So now we move into Amazing Spider-Man 407, which on the cover it's Ben fighting Sandman with Silver Sable in the background, just frustrated. And on the cover with big text, we have the return of ... Amazing Spider-Man. So kind of loosely, these few issues after that Scarlet Spider period, you can call them the return of Spider-Man, which is the name of this episode of the podcast. And so the team here is, as usual, well, actually not as usual. The writer is Tom DeFalco, who wrote the Amazing Scarlet Spider issues, but he's now officially the amazing writer after DeMatteis is gone. And it's drawn by Mark Bagley, as it has been for fucking forever. And on this cover, I also wanted to point out that this cover, particularly the pose and how thin Bagley draws him, it actually really reminded me of Spider-Girl Mayday.
Yeah, oh, it definitely did.
Because obviously that costume gets hand-me-down, basically.
Yeah, honestly, I turned to this page and my first thought was, oh, it's Mayday. It's not. Obviously, it's not Mayday.
It almost
Yeah, because it's good. It's good, so it can't be Mayday.
Mayday is all right.
Mayday fine.
We'll see. I think we'll read a little bit of her eventually.
I'm actually excited for that.
It lasted forever. It lasted for so long.
So the Daily Bugle is running a story, front page. They're questioning the status of Spider-Man. And Jonah and Robbie, they argue whether maybe he's replaced, maybe he has a new costume. And the Human Torch wants to do his own investigation and leaves Spidey a giant note in the sky to meet at their usual place. And Matt, where do they meet?
At Statue of Liberty.
Yep. All right, so now let's talk about the context for Johnny coming into this.
Well, before you do that, I just got a quick advertisement here. As Vince is going to go on a tangent, I'm going to drink a Land Shark. And remember, The Meg in theaters this summer.
Vince Tangents, brought to you by alcohol.
I'll try to put a timestamp in the description if one of our viewers wants to skip this aside. Unfortunately, the three of you cannot skip this. So Fantastic Four 407 actually came out the month before this, and this is Amazing Spider-Man 407. So the titles are the same numbering. And Tom DeFalco also writes Fantastic Four from 356 to 416, a long-ass run from 91 to 96.
Holy shit.
And at the end of that, it ends because Johnny, well, even from this point, this is Fantastic Four 407, it goes to 416. At that point, Johnny gets thrown into a pocket universe because of Heroes Reborn. But before this, during DeFalco's run, he's been dealing with his own identity crisis, which kind of some similarities to clone issues. So during the John Byrne run, the Thing stayed away from the team for a while after Secret Wars. And in the Thing's absence, Johnny Storm started a relationship with and quickly married, though right after the Byrne run, Ben's longtime girlfriend, Alicia Masters, which was kind of weird, but whatever. DeFalco thought it was really, really weird, even though by this point that happened 7 years ago. So in his very first arc on the book, Tom DeFalco retcons Alicia Masters into being a Skrull. I would say it's probably the most controversial Fantastic Four retcon ever. Probably second place would be similar involving Alicia, which was John Byrne's explanation that the Thing always rejects Reed's cures because he thinks Alicia wouldn't love him or some shit. And so Alicia is actually an undercover Skrull agent named Lyja, but she got in too deep and she actually fell in love with Johnny. Obviously, this freaks out Johnny. And then the Fantastic Four, they go and with Lyja, they go rescue the real Alicia, and she gets back with Ben. And then some stuff happens because Johnny was confused and freaking out. Lyja fights the Fantastic Four out of frustration with Johnny's frustration with her. And I'll note quickly also that this is when Paibok was introduced for all the Skrull fans, one of the few major Skrulls. Then
Paibok has an appearance in Ultimate Alliance.
Yep. Yeah, Paibok's the Super Skrull, but with X-Men powers, basically. And then Lyja and Johnny sort of get back together, and she gets pregnant. Then it turns out that pregnancy was a Skrull monster weapon thing, so they break off again. Then she goes undercover again, not as Alicia, but as another human named Laura Green, and she stalks him, and then eventually starts dating him undercover in this different identity.
What?
Also, for a year or so at this point, Reed Richards and Doctor Doom are dead. And Scott Lang and Namor are hanging around with the Fantastic Four. So that's his current status quo. But just for the hell of it, to finish that story, in the final 2 issues of Fantastic Four, tying into Onslaught, Lyja reveals her ruse as Laura Green, and Johnny reveals that he's known for a while and still loves her. And then directly after that, the 4 core Fantastic Four are presumed dead due to Onslaught. And then there's a one-shot after Onslaught, which was supposed to tease some of the B and C tier main continuity books like Thunderbolt and Mark Waid's Kazar, because all the flagship books besides Spider-Man and X-Men were off in the Heroes Reborn shit. And due to the abrupt cancellations for Heroes Reborn, DeFalco writes like a page or 2 in that issue of Lyja going off to try and live a normal life, and probably a sad one because her husband is assumed dead. And again, at the very end, they both were like, "Oh, we actually do love each other. I accept all this shit we both put each other through." And then she just disappears. She finally returns a decade later in the Fantastic Four tie-in miniseries for Secret Invasion, where she the Skrulls they find her and they try and recruit her, but she helps the Fantastic Four and she foils a plan, and she reunites with Johnny, and they're kind of like, "Oh, hey, I kind of liked you." But then she just fucks off to the negative zone for some dumb reason to explore her origin, and then she's never appeared since. So lots of people fucking hate Tom DeFalco's Fantastic Four run, and specifically the Lyja retcon. And it is a huge retcon, and it fucks with 7 years of stories. But if I'm being honest, I kind of like this ridiculous roller coaster ride that follows of the 2 of them. And where I'm kind of going to attempt to connect this is that I would say Johnny Storm has a similar predicament to Peter Parker in the Marvel Universe, where they're close buddies in the hero community. They're around the same age, so they should age alongside each other. But writers and readers who are more on the side of the illusion of change rather than real change, they want them both to stay as their young bachelor selves. They want Johnny to be this hothead and constantly picking trivial fights with Ben Grimm. They want Peter Parker to do whatever the fuck Dan Slott writes him doing. And John Byrne and the writers who followed him, they kind of tried to mature Johnny. He actually has a ton of character development in the Byrne run. Meanwhile, of course, through the 80s, Peter was finally maturing a bit. He had a pretty serious relationship with the Black Cat, and then that ends, and then he quickly moves on to the stable relationship with MJ, which quickly evolves into the marriage. And getting Johnny married to Alicia, that's maturation, but it's still weird. I personally, I think that's fucking weird as shit.
Mm-hmm.
So what the Falco did was make a huge retcon to return to a more Silver Age status quo, just like they're trying to do with the Clone Saga right now. And just like he kind of did in his Thor run with Eric Masterson bringing back the Donald Blake concept. And it's ultimately regressive, but they hadn't grown the balls to try truly insane things like One More Day yet. So Alicia gets fixed in that regressive way, but the Elijah reveal ultimately leads to restored maturation and progression for Johnny, because he's still like, oh, the Alicia thing's fixed, but now he still has this serious relationship, which is kind of what would have happened if they had kept the trigger pulled on the new status quo for Ben Reilly and Peter Parker, who is now married and is soon to be a father. So 90s comics are weird, but I'd like to publicly say that I ship Johnny and Elijah. I think fans moan less about Johnny being stunted, and he's not really, but you can definitely make that argument. And plenty of people will make the argument that the Fantastic Four in general is stunted, and most people point to DeFalco as the start of that, and then they make iffy exceptions for Wade and Hickman because their runs just happen to be really good. But I mean, the question is, has Johnny had any quality relationships since Elijah? Definitely not Medusa.
No.
He doesn't date anyone in Wade's run, does he?
Not
No.
that I remember, not that significant. And of course, that's not a requirement for a superhero story. And like ultimately, he's still supposed to he's supposed to be the younger character on the team. But I thought it was interesting to note.
And plus, he's dead for most of Hickman's run.
All right, so now back to the actual story of Amazing Spider-Man 407.
Back to the daily grind.
Yep, the daily grind of this podcast, you could say, or weekly.
If this podcast were daily, I'd die.
We pick up with Ben's new job at the Daily Grind, which, like we said, kind of a throwback to the Coffee Bean. And we're finally building up a supporting cast for Ben.
Is that what this is?
I guess. His boss, I mean, it's better than like the very short attempts that they've tried to bring in supporting characters for him before.
Better than Mr. So.
Yeah, that's
or those like 3 girls that they like teased him with.
It's so much worse than Jack. If they had just kept Jack as a supporting character, then you wouldn't need to create any more.
Listen, he was too good. He would have overwhelmed the books. He needed to die for that reason.
No, I definitely wish Jack was his roommate. And we have books of Ben Reilly rooming with Jack. That'd be amazing.
But he would dominate the book.
Jack should get his own solo series, honestly.
I'd read it. I'd buy every issue.
So
I'd buy every variant.
Ben's boss is Shirley, and she has a son named Devin. And there's this quirky patron named Buzz who makes a Hootie and the Blowfish reference.
Our third Hootie and the Blowfish reference.
And then that fashion model we met earlier is Desiree Winthrop. And one of her posse, besides the Hootie and the Blowfish reference, one of her posse is wearing a white zombie shirt. And you kind of need a new supporting cast because Ben can't just sneak into Peter's life, as they showed with that Aunt Anna scene. Like, he can't just show up at the Bugle. But that's also kind of the ultimate goal of the Clone Saga, since they wanted Ben to like fully return to that Peter Parker status quo. And so I have no idea what they were thinking, like the possibilities that they were coming up with, had they not just reversed the entire thing. Because I have no idea how you would have solved that problem without doing a One More Day thing, which is what I was referencing earlier, where eventually Marvel just got ballsy enough to just do whatever the fuck they wanted with the retcon. And then Silver Sable and Sandman are training new Wild Pack recruits.
That's a sentence.
Yep. Though the Silver Sable book, she had a book for 35 issues. It's been canceled for half a year at this point. Though it will get another issue in early 2018 as part of Marvel Legacy.
Well, wait. 2018. We're past Marvel Legacy, aren't we?
Yeah, it already came out, but I'm saying that was one of the titles that Marvel decided to add another issue on. So Sandman, the kind of the crux of this issue is that Ben doesn't understand Sandman's status quo or Silver Sable. Sandman has, at this point, has been reformed for 14 years since Marvel 2-in-1 86, which was also written by Tom DeFalco. And he was an Avengers reservist alongside Peter Parker. They both join in the same issue. Also Rage. And again, here's another example where you look at Sandman of eventually they regress this character development, which that happens in a few years in the Byrne Mackey relaunch.
Similar character over in DC. Can't wait until they regress Clayface.
Yeah, well, they already did that. I'm pretty sure. I think they killed him.
Yeah, he's dead.
No, I guess spoilers if you didn't read the end of Tynan's Detective Comics. No, he's cured. He's with his doctor, and he's still alive. He left a note for Cass.
Okay.
Oh.
So Silver Sable wants Sandman to check in on the new Spider-Man. So they're leading to a misunderstanding fight, but Silver Sable wants there to be a misunderstanding fight to gauge his abilities. And then there's this scene, which I don't think was really necessary, and it honestly did catch me. We see Spidey and Torch meet up, and then the Human Torch just murders Ben. He just falls to his death, burned to a crisp. And I'm like, what?
And then it's like, oh, it was fake. But aren't these like random guys that are talking on radios, aren't they talking about reporting to Sable?
I don't know.
Yeah, because they say that, but how would Mysterio know that Sable has anything to do with what's going on right now?
True. But then the misunderstanding fight between Sandman and Spider-Man, it does go down on the ferry, kind of like Spider-Man Homecoming. And then Ben starts getting super quippy. Matt, how did you feel about these quips?
They're better than Jurgens.
Yeah, they were fine. They're just very prominent.
Yes.
I don't remember, but like episodes and episodes ago, there was some arc where there was a ton of quips, and that was terrible whenever that was.
Yeah.
I want to just cut you guys off for a second, because this is the second time that I've been on this podcast, and they have referred to someone with white hair as a blonde. And it's very infuriating because that's...
Billy, as a blonde man, are you offended?
A little bit.
Coloring, stupidity, who knows? And then Johnny joins in the fight, and then Silver Sable immediately breaks it up. And Ben just acts like a complete jerk to Johnny off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't like that. There's literally no reason for him to do that.
And the whole setup of this issue was these two characters are going to meet, and then they have like one line between each other, and they're just assholes. So I'll be interested to see if Johnny Storm shows up again in the Clone Saga.
But also, there's this weird subplot with this photographer woman who takes pictures of Ben when he like first costumes up, and then in this issue, randomly for this one page, they're in a what is it called, a red room,
Dark room,
and they're developing the photos. And who knows the name of a photographer for your local newspaper? Fucking nobody. And yet somehow they know Peter Parker's name just off the top of their head.
Well, you know, he also wrote a book.
Yeah, he put out a book.
That's a good question, because would the Metropolis citizens know Jimmy Olsen's name?
No.
Probably not.
No one misses him when he dies.
I think they would know Jimmy only because he's involved with Superman so often.
Yeah, because he's Superman's pal.
I don't know. I'm not sure all the Daily
Brian Michael
Daily
Bendis,
Planet employees
it's up
know.
to you to answer the question now. So the sequence when Ben goes to visit Seward Trainer in the hospital, he looks like John Constantine.
Okay.
You're not completely wrong. But
So he got the trench coat on. There's like the one panel with like, because it's cold outside, it's like you can see his breath. It looks like he's smoking.
So now that's pretty much that. Ben also gets offered a freelance gig from Silver Sable, and it's not clear exactly what his reaction to it is because Peter had the same kind of setup, but Peter never took money. Ben kind of needs money, so we'll see if when Silver Sable shows up. And now we move into Spider-Man 64. This is a Romita cover and a character called Poison. And the creative team here is Mackie and Romita. Had any of you heard of Poison before?
No.
So Poison, she's not a dumb new Clone Saga villain. She's a weird Steve Gerber creation from Web of Spider-Man Annual 4, which is back in 1988. And she had a solo arc in Marvel Comics Presents. And now she's here. So Spidey saves a boy's life from a big fire, and the kid claims his mother is still alive, and his mother is Poison. But
okay,
then,
well, I'm gonna make you pause right there. This is where I got kind of I got kind of pissed off here. So the kid is like, no, my mom's still alive. My mom's still alive. And then Ben's just like, yeah, I know, kid. And then he just stares at the fucking building as this reporter's trying to talk to him. Who, number one, this reporter won't leave him alone. That's fucking annoying. Number two, he just like stares at the building and is ready for it to collapse. And he was not going to go in that building to see if that kid's mother was still alive. You're a superhero. Go in there and see.
He like explains kind of that he's certain that no one could possibly be alive in that building. And we find out she's only alive because she's a superhuman. So it makes sense.
No, you go in there.
yeah,
he can survive by going in there.
I had a similar reaction where I'm like I understand the perspective, but it's also weird to show that in the comic, to make that choice creatively. But then stupid El Toro Negro shows up to steal the kid from the ambulance.
God, and this guy, right?
This is continuing the great game plot from last episode, which my boy Phil Urich was involved in. Here's his book again.
Did you take it off the shelf and put it there just to flash this?
I just haven't moved it since last episode. So Poison gets drafted into the Great Game and then bails from the game since Toro has her son strapped to bombs. And then he makes her fight Spider-Man, and she uses her OP-ass power, which is what it usually does is it erases people from existence, but causes her great harm.
That's pretty brutal.
Hold on. Say that again. It erases people from existence? Yeah. What?
It's kind of like Medusa, like turning people to stone when you like look at them, but she has to like focus really hard, and then they just totally disappear. And I think it gives her a headache.
So her powers are she's super strong, she's like very durable, she can fly, and she can erase people from existence.
Yeah, but that's like the flourish move.
Dude, she's my new favorite. I don't give a fuck.
She can teleport. And apparently like teleport other people, because that's the twist, is that it's a fake out and she teleports Ben and then they save the day.
Listen, if I'm Poison's son, I don't want to piss her off. That's all I'm saying.
Now to touch on some subplots that are
better eat your broccoli, man.
Interlaced.
We'll erase you from existence.
Mysterio, he's up to no good. He's buying a cable TV station.
He buys a cable TV station, then he randomly goes into costume for no reason.
And also, there's also a point earlier in the issue where one of the guys at the Daily Grind gets into an argument with Ben about like reading the newspaper versus watching TV. So I'm gonna be really scared if this is like some weird like old dude, TV sucks, print media. I'm very scared that will be the plot line.
Yeah, it probably will.
And Ben also gets a shitty apartment. a little better than where he's been living though. And that's basically it. But back to Poison. At the end, Poison and her son, they tell Ben they're going to go get set up again in New York. And she will appear again, but it's not until like 10 years, and she gets killed by Wolverine in Mark Millar's Enemy of the State.
Millar ruins everything.
It's maybe possible. I found zero evidence of this, and I think it's 99% unlikely. But it's maybe possible that there were plans for her. Because she's a Steve Gerber creation, though you'd think this would be a Steve Gerber guest issue. And he is about to pop back into Marvel for something that we will cover on this podcast in a few episodes. But I'm not spoiling that episode entirely, but that deal didn't go well. So at least headcanon, unlike they were preparing a Poison miniseries for Steve Gerber, and then they ditched it because he didn't play nice. So that was basically it. How do you guys feel overall about Ben Reilly now as Spider-Man?
I'll let someone else go first.
I would be more interested in reading the Poison book.
I love this. This is like my favorite episode in like 20 episodes.
I'm with Vince. Like the first two arcs with Ben were just god awful, drizzling shits of comic books. This was okay.
This was fun. I had fun reading this, which is more than I can say.
When we have this reaction, we're gonna have 5 more episodes where we're gonna want to claw our eyeballs out.
No, right. So savor this.
Savor
Poison.
I agree with everything that's been said. I would also rather read a Poison book, but this is pretty good.
Yeah.
There's no drama in the Poison book. She just wipes people from existence.
That's fine.
It's awesome.
Yeah, this is what I've finally been waiting for. I feel like we're like, when does Ben dye his hair?
Yeah.
Did it?
Now here's like the costume, and we know Carnage is going to take him over at some point.
Now Ben is Spider-Man, and I guess they're treating it like it's final for like a few months, and then they're gonna want to reverse it, but then stall for a few months, and then it'll be over, and then we'll have more stuff to read.
Guys, we're almost done.
We're not. I think we have 2 more episodes, and then we'll be halfway.
Oh wow, that's cool, boys.
So watch out for all those episodes, and thanks for watching. Peace.
Get home safe.